Okay, so Asha, you and Sam
Yeah.
had a tsunami day in
Yeah.
California.
Like a tsunami hour or two.
A tsunami hour. So
Yeah.
did that work okay? Were there any repercussions?
For some people, some people evacuated their homes, and it was stressful until they lifted the tsunami warning. But it was a bit crazy there for a moment.
Did
Yeah.
anything actually happen? Was there like actually a big wave or no?
There was actually a big earthquake, like a 7.0, up in Northern California, but no big wave down here, at least that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah. We have these this like beach cam over in Ocean Beach that like the website was breaking yesterday. I think all of us were like on it trying to see like, is there gonna be a big wave? But yeah, it was pretty wild. People were just making sure that they were going to higher ground. That was like the big thing.
That's wild. We're having currently snow days where we are, and it is
Wow.
pandemonium. It's just I think we've had probably like 1.5 feet of snow in 24 hours.
Wow.
And I mostly know how much snow because I've been shoveling it nonstop for the last day and a half. It's been pretty annoying.
Wow.
But now I have kids home.
Yeah,
so
you just all
that's
stay
fun.
home, right? You don't go anywhere. Or it sounds amazing, actually, for us.
It sounds really cute and nice.
Great. Yeah, but I can imagine it gets to be a lot after a while.
You do want to pull your hair out after the first few hours. This is, it's like I know like sometimes people like to denigrate school as like it's nothing but like taxpayer funded childcare. They're not learning anything, and I'm like, that's actually pretty good.
Still, I'll take that. Yeah, whatever.
Taxpayer funded childcare. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like
anyway.
Big one here.
So you two are married. You have children. In fact, children at the same time. And I think this is going to be an interesting conversation because that's really what we're going to dig into. So first, actually, Asha and then Sam, like, tell us a bit about what you do for work. And then we'll talk about the moment when you got the ultrasound, maybe where you're like, oh, damn. So let's start with your regular lives, like work wise.
Yeah. So let me pull this back up. I lost you guys for a second. Where are you? Sorry. I have like a million tabs open and I lost the.
This is classic life in the age of Zoom.
Yeah,
like, where's this tab again?
Yeah, and I have like my work, my personal. So I am a director of product at a company called HoneyBook. We're a late stage startup based in San Francisco and Tel Aviv, Israel, and it's a business and client management platform for independents. So anyone who is a small business owner who runs their own operation, we have a lot of like sole proprietors who work on HoneyBook, like solo entrepreneurs, but then a lot of businesses that have like small teams and they use HoneyBook to send out digital contracts, invoices, manage their client relationships. And then more recently, my team and I built out a whole suite of financial products, small business loans and bank accounts, debit cards, all of that to really help our small business users kind of manage their business where they manage their client relationships. So
that's awesome.
Fun.
I feel like that's a good strategic move getting into money because I hear there's a lot of money in money. So that seems smart. And then Sam, you're in my neck of the woods. Discipline wise, I think you're a researcher, no?
That's right. I'm a UX researcher for an early stage stealth startup, and I'm also a community coordinator for the House of Web3 in the Presidio of San Francisco, which is a co-creation and innovation hub in the city.
So are we going to be breaking the news on what your stealth startup is, or like, nah, not today?
Probably not today. Well.
Nice try, Alec.
Next time. I thought I could get it out of him. That's exciting. So whole theme for why I think it's going to be interesting to talk to you both is I think you are the only people I know, or I'm sure there are more, but that I actually know that have twins. And was this these were your first kids?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So walk me through that moment when you found out. Was it like the ultrasound where like you saw two blobs on the thing, or did you know earlier than that?
Yeah, we actually found earlier. So, do you mind if I tell the story, Sam?
Yeah, go for it.
So we were actually in Europe trying to do this cool live abroad thing for a while because my whole team was in Tel Aviv and Sam could work remotely. So we were like, let's just go live in Portugal and Spain for a few months.
Yeah,
And
why
so,
not?
yeah, we were yeah, we were living the dream. So we were in Madrid when I found out I was pregnant, and we didn't even have a flight back home. So I was like, well, shoot, maybe we should head back home and I'll go to the doctor, see what's up. And I ended up flying down. Sam went to Lisbon to meet up with one of his good friends, and I had gone back to Tel Aviv for work. So I ended up in Southern California, where my childhood home is. A few days earlier, I was visiting my dad, and I was feeling a little weird. So Sam said, why don't you just go to the hospital, get things checked out? It was a Saturday. So the doctor recommended I go to the emergency room. And that's when they rolled me in, and I was in there for a really long time. And after a while, the technician was like, well, I don't normally do this, but do you want to see? I was like, sure. She's like, so here's a baby. And I was like, oh, okay. Everything's good. She's like, and here's another one. Wait, what? And Sam's in Lisbon. And I'm like, wait, what?
Man,
So I call him and I'm like, there are two in there. It was crazy.
holy smokes! What did you think when you first heard that, Sam? What was your reaction?
I was just in shock. I mean, we of course found out sometime earlier that she was pregnant, and so we had sort of been through the shock and the joy of that. But the news that it was two was a whole other level of shock, and I was hanging out with my friend in Lisbon, and I got the call from Asha, and like he just heard me going like, whoa, 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 and I got off the phone and I was like, it's twins, and we were like, oh my god, it was just wild.
Yeah. So, when we were having our third, there was like a moment where like Maggie looked at me and she's like, "It better not be two." Like I think that would be really like. I have a weird feeling. Thankfully, there's only one for us. I don't know how we'd handle having four at this point, but that must have been such a surreal thing because you're going from zero, like zero. Talk about 0 to 100. Like 0 to 2 is like 0 to 1,000. I feel like.
Yeah, it was, I think it was still like at least once a week I turn to Sam and I'm like, oh, we have two babies. Like, this is crazy. But it's like, I don't know. It's been really great. I think through my pregnancy, thankfully you have like several months to really wrap your head around the fact that your whole world is going to change. And so, we had that time to really figure out what we're going to do. And if we stay in our apartment in San Francisco, and our community really stepped in at that time and helped out in terms of like helping us get ready. And we knew that we would need a lot of help like immediately after their birth. And Sam's parents came out for like 5 weeks. My parents came out.
Wow.
We had like a night doula help us out, like really grateful for a few nights a week. So it was great, but yeah.
So tell me, like, so you get this news, right? And I mean, I think most, to be working parents, there's obviously a lot of changes, preparation, all that sort of stuff. I imagine even more so for your situation. I remember we survived for like a few months in our 500 something square foot condo in Toronto when we had our first, and that was tough with one. I can't even imagine with more. So like, what happened to get yourselves ready for this situation? And again, you're still working full-time jobs. Like, it's not like you've got just like endless hours to just think and goof off about this stuff.
Yeah. Sam, you want to?
Yeah. So we of course had the the full 8 or 9 months to kind of mentally and physically prepare. And Asha mentioned that we were thinking about moving, pretty close to after we found out. And because we thought like, okay, we're going to need somewhere on the ground floor, because we live in an apartment that's quite a few stairs, like up to our space.
It's like an old San Francisco Edwardian apartment. So it's like 1904 built. It's got like a really long hallway, so like rooms on either end, and
which are
it's
super beautiful, right?
gorgeous. Yeah, and we're right across the street from Golden Gate Park, like amazing location. So it's really ideal, and like compared to a lot of other apartments, it's like 1,400 square feet, which is like spacious in San Francisco. And
Well,
so
I mean, our ancestors must have been built different, having
100%.
families in some of these buildings. You just look at them and you're like, no. I mean,
No.
even in San Francisco in general, I mean, all these hills, I'm like, I'm not pushing a stroller up that. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
just leave the kids in the Embarcadero, stay by the water, don't hurt yourselves. Like, that's
Not
too
if there's a
far.
tsunami warning. We learned
No,
that
no, it's a
yesterday.
tsunami warning.
Worst
That's a good
place to
point.
be.
Well,
Yeah.
parking, is another issue at these rows of apartments, and we don't have parking on site, and so that was one thing that we were like thinking like, oh, we're gonna have to move to a place like with better parking because loading in and out is just gonna be crazy with two. And then one thing that really helped us both prep, I think, was starting to meet other parents like in our neighborhood. We met some of our neighbors who have kids, and they live in a very similar apartment to we do. So we're like, okay, like if they can do it, we can too. And we started meeting more and more, and we joined like parents groups, WhatsApp groups and other online groups, and that just helped tremendously to have kind of an instant community, like in addition to the community that we had through our friends and family.
Did you guys stay where you were living for a while? Like, are you still there?
We're still
Okay.
here. Yeah.
There
I'm
you
in the
go.
back room of our apartment. I don't know if you're able to
I
see
mean, I
it,
love the wood
but
fixtures that I can
yeah,
see.
it's
That's
like,
like,
yeah, there's a bar behind us. There's also 2 high chairs.
listen, if you have twins, you need a bar behind you at all times. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
I hear that.
This room has become the catch-all. It's also my office. But yeah, they're like these really cool old wood panels, and like we have these gardens behind us. It's like a really awesome apartment, but we are realizing, one of ours is starting to crawl, and he's
There
like
you go.
beginning to explore, and soon they'll be running around, and we're like, yeah, eventually we may have to move, but for the time being, we're trying to make it work.
I'd be remiss without saying that I think, on a total side note, anybody that paints over those kinds of wood ornate furnishings or removes them should be punished by at least 10 years in prison. That is just
100%.
absolutely should be illegal.
Okay.
So you guys, so you end up staying in that location. So like, I mean, if I was in your shoes, I'd be like trying to put together a survival plan, essentially. How did you, so between them arriving and you finding out, what are some of the key things that you did to essentially prepare yourselves for what is essentially going to be a absolutely massive, I mean, it's already a big change when you go to becoming parents for the first time, but like this is going to be a huge new level of responsibility and lifestyle change.
Yeah. It was pretty nuts. I mean, I'm grateful I have a lot of friends who are very well organized individuals. And so I got a lot of spreadsheets of like things that I should get for at least one baby. And then my sister-in-law actually sent us a book early on that was like, what to do if you're having two. And I remember I got it when I was like really early on in my pregnancy, and I opened it and I was like, nope, not ready. Like, I think I cried a little bit. I put it to the side. And then like a couple months in, once we had wrapped our heads around like everything that was going on, I pulled it back out, and it was really helpful in just like figuring out, okay, for one, there, like you said, like the difference is huge, but there are things that are very specific to like needing two. And it's like, do we get 2 cribs? Like, how do we find 2 of everything? We were putting together our baby registry, and I was like, do we ask for 2 of all of these things? It's kind of crazy. And so we were gifted a lot of stuff from friends, which we're really grateful for. And so we didn't have to be so crazy in asking for 2 of everything. We could ask for 1. But yeah, I went down a lot of rabbit holes. There was like, I think like 5 days straight where I just was like deep in like what to do about strollers. And I was like calling my mom like every day, like, okay, this is a new update on a stroller that I found. And it was at the same time that I was working, and we were actually about to launch our product that just went to market a few months ago. It was pretty crazy. I don't know how it all happened. I think you just go into hyper focus mode and really utilize all the time that you have to get things done.
It's so you mentioned you get this book and then you like open it up and you're like, absolutely not, like just not emotionally prepared. Sam, you're seeing this stuff like Asha's going through this. What are you doing to like, because I can speak from my point of view of, I remember the first time, and obviously your partner's going through a lot of changes and a lot of feelings, and as a guy you're just kind of like, how are you feeling today, like because you're not going through any of that stuff either, so it can be hard to relate. Was there anything that you were able to do to really support and help out along this journey as you got ready for these two?
Great question. I think the key was just kind of communication, because I think at many times I was just kind of sort of at a loss about how best I could support Asha, and so just kind of like talking about it as much as possible. And then at times if she just doesn't want to talk about it, also that's okay. Like, um, and also I kind of Asha, like she said, was like going down so many rabbit holes and was really doing all this research, and I kind of felt bad that I felt like I wasn't keeping up with her. But through that communication, I also learned a tremendous amount, like from her, and also doing my own research. And so it was just definitely like a process, and like kind of like working through that stress together, and leaning on our community as well, and just trying to figure out the little and big ways that I could support Asha and prepare at the same time.
I feel like this part, one of the big differences for the dads and the moms, the dads don't have that same sense of urgency because they can't feel it, right? It's like, oh, it's X number of months away, whereas presumably for mom, it's like, oh, this baby's getting bigger. In this case, these babies are getting bigger. Like, it's harder to move. Like, we got to figure this thing out or whatever. I totally relate to I don't really know what to do to help you here. Like,
Yeah.
do you want me to make you a snack? Right? Like,
Yeah.
you often very small tactical things is the best I could come up with.
Yeah.
Was there any with like even post baby, like when you think about, obviously the communication has to be really strong between the two of you. Were there certain things that Sam did that you felt were like oddly super helpful, either before giving birth or afterwards, where you're like, that was a huge weight off my shoulders, that made me feel much more comfortable or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was really grateful because I think because Sam was like working remote during this time, he basically was able to come to like the majority of the ultrasound appointments that we had. And like with twins, and especially early on for my case, like they had us monitored like multiple times a week, every week until they were born.
Whoa.
It was crazy.
Is that normal for twins?
It can be. Yeah, it depends. Basically, our girl was a lot smaller than the boy. And so as soon as they realized that, they wanted to just keep track. So it was like at least one ultrasound and then these like non-stress tests where they hooked up my belly to these heart monitors. And for like 30 minutes, we just like sit there and they just keep an eye on the heart. So like those two appointments every week, plus like visiting my OB and everything. So we were in really great hands, which was awesome. But like Sam would be there, which I was so grateful for, because like he would hear something that like the doctor would say something and I would like catastrophize and be like, the world's ending, like everything's going to go wrong. And he was like, actually, what I heard from the doctor was like X and we just need to do Y. And that really helped me like mitigate my own stress and anxiety. And even like post-birth, Sam is great about that. Like he's a UX researcher for a reason. He's like a very good listener, and he's able to like really take in what someone's saying and then like translate it back in a way that's like, oh, okay, actually, right. Like you give better perspective on this. But I like now too, like I'll just like go kind of extreme on anything that's going on. And Sam will like listen, he'll sit through and he'll go to all the doctor's appointments too. And he'll have like a perspective that is often like just like mitigates like my own stress and helps bring me back to ground. So
It feels like there's a part of the area where someone can be really helpful is just there's an intense level of this is going to be very different, and how do we also know it's going to be okay?
yeah. That's a big one. And that's exactly, Sam would be like the one to help me be like, it's going to be okay. Because like you said, like the woman's like feeling it. I'm like, every day I'm just like, there are these two babies and we're coming closer and closer. And like Sam, especially like in the hospital, the babies ended up coming pretty early. And so the delivery happened pretty fast. And then I was in a bad shape for like 24 hours. And so I couldn't, the babies ended up going to the NICU. They were in the NICU for like almost a month.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And
Whoa.
so I wasn't able to like go visit them that first like 24 hours. And Sam was there like the whole time, like talking to all the nurses, talking to the doctors. He FaceTimed me from the NICU while I was like in the hospital room upstairs, and like all of that, like stepping into that, like I didn't have to worry about anything except for my own recovery, which was like really amazing.
Yo, shout out to Sam. Stepping up in a major way.
Yeah.
What's it like for you, Sam? Again, like I think back to my experience, and obviously it was not nearly as extreme in the situation. You know, we were only ever having one at a time, but you know, I look over there and, you know, doctors saying one thing, and I look over there and, you know, Maggie's interpreting it that way. And, you know, trying to make sense of that situation. How did you find that level of tranquility? Because also you're trying to process this stuff for yourself too, right? Like this is all new information for you as well, right?
Do you mean at a specific point in the?
Well, it seems like this is a common theme, both pre and post kiddos arriving.
Yeah, I mean, there was just so many different layers like at every step along the way, and I think that I just really tried my best to support Asha and just like kind of keep my cool in a way, even though I was really stressed out on the inside too.
Were you really? Did you know that, Asha? He's freaking out on the inside.
No, he doesn't like show it that often. Maybe there was like one time where I like broke down. I'm like, don't you feel this too? And he's like, yeah, trust me, I do. But yeah, no, he keeps his cool pretty well.
I mean, especially leading up to the birth, you know, especially as we were, you know, going through all the ultrasounds and making sure that both the babies were okay. I mean, that was causing a lot of anxiety. And I think it was much more difficult to keep my cool like beforehand. But once the babies came and we were at the hospital and we knew that they were going to be healthy, then I could kind of start the process of like, you know, being a great dad and a great partner as well. Like, you know, as after the babies had arrived, and but yeah, just kind of, and everything was just constantly changing. Like I'm sure you all had similar experiences of everything changes from week to week, and so it's always like you constantly have to adapt, and so that was just like such a major challenge in so many ways. But I think it's definitely an exercise in adaptability, and hopefully we're doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, the adaptability part. Well, I think one of the big things that where things started to just be more sane for us is once you've settled into like what to expect, like in general, right? So, you know, when our first kid got sick, that was like our whole life was over, right? You know, it's the end of the world. Oh my God, you know, whatever. Now kids get sick. It's just like, I know what the next 48 hours is going to look like. I also know it's going to be fine. They're going to cry. They're going to be upset. They're going to have a fever. I'm going to give them Tylenol or whatever the children's equivalent of it, and it's going to be fine. And I think that was one of the big things too that you're essentially talking about, was like you figure out you now have a new baseline level of adaptability.
Yeah.
Right. And initially, I think it's probably really hard. I mean, it certainly was for me. And then once you ease into it, and you know, now you're like, okay, I'm actually now a more resilient person, a more adaptable person, and this is just life now.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how crazy it's going to be when you're like 55 and all your kids are all grown up and you have all this time, and now you're like super duper resilient and adaptable like crazy, and you have, you know, you could put in 60-hour weeks on the craziest. That I think about that sometimes. I'm like, man,
you're gonna be
I'm
like
going to be very, very competent in 20 years.
Yeah.
Actually, Sam and I talk about that too.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now I'm so constrained on everything.
Yeah.
But then you guys, how fast did you both go back to work? Were you able to take some time?
Yeah. So I took 4 months that I was like completely off at HoneyBook, and yeah, so 4 months. And Sam went back a little earlier.
Yeah, and I actually accepted the position at House of Web3 about a month before the babies were born, and so and it was an on-site contract role. Um, so I knew I was going to have to be on site. Uh, I knew I wasn't going to be able to take a whole lot of time off, and so that was a decision we made, and it worked out. And I have to hand it to my team at the House of Web3 for giving me some flexibility there, and it definitely what was a major challenge having to be on site every day, but we kind of made it work, and fortunately Asha was able to take quite a substantial amount of time off, and so it was tricky, but we made it work.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was tough taking care of the kids on mat leave, or were you able to build up a significant kind of support network that made it fairly manageable?
Yeah, in the beginning, the first 2 months, so they were in the NICU for the first month, and then Sam's parents came out for like 5 weeks, which was like really great. Plus, we had this night doula. So those first few weeks that they were home was great. And then when Sam went back to work, there was like a period of like, it was just like a week and a half or something, but it felt like 5 months where we didn't have any family that was visiting. One of our family friends had to cancel. So it was like this week and a half where it was just me and the babies. And I could have lost, like, I almost, I was like, this is really, really difficult because in that time you're feeding them constantly every 2 hours, and they're
Yeah.
not necessarily on the same schedule too. You try and get them on the same schedule as twins. That's like your goal in the beginning, but it's not always the case. And so I just felt like there would be times where Sam would come home and I'm like, if I have to give another baby a bottle, I'm going to freak out. And he would like step in really quickly and just like feed them. It was just the bottle feeding. Everything else was fine. But I was like, there are 25 bottles that I'm like going through a day. I can't do this anymore. So that was tough.
Yeah, it's tough when it's like this constant needing of person.
Yeah. And there's no break. Like,
There's no
I'm sure
break.
one is difficult as is. And then with two, it's literally like absolutely no break. Yeah. So it was hard.
Were you excited to go back to work?
I was, yeah. I was like, I'm ready. Like this is great. Let's do this. Which was like a whole other thing. But yeah, I was ready to go back.
Yeah. So what's the, for both of you, maybe start with you, Sam. Are you working remotely? Is that what you said?
I was working remotely while
You
Asha
were,
was
okay.
pregnant, and then now I'm working on site.
So what was the transition to back to work like for you, and how are you finding it balancing being a parent essentially with also being a high performing team member?
Yeah, it's so many layers to that question. I mean, it's because on one hand, it's tough being away from home. Well, I mean, in some ways, like I think like theoretically it might be easier, and maybe I'd be a better dad if I was able to work remotely, like and be home more. But on the other hand, it's like maybe I'm also a better dad because I I have some time away and I'm able to kind of be with my team and work on site, and then go home and be a good dad in the evenings and on the weekends. Um, and maybe I'm fresher that way, and also at work, like I'm around lots of other dads, and so that's kind of been an important piece for me. Um, but it's still really tough because especially with two, your concept of free time is completely different than it was pre kids, and so that's something I'm still struggling with, and I think it's going to take a lot of time to adapt to that, and my identity as a dad and my interests and everything and my pursuits.
It's that free time thing is like obviously such a huge change. The one of the crazy ones for me is what time I go to bed now. Like pre-kids, I would never be in bed before like 2 a.m. Sometimes working, sometimes goofing off, whatever it is. Luckily, I used to live like right next, like same intersection as where I worked.
Nice.
So I would like roll out of bed at 9:45 a.m. for my 10 a.m. meeting and just like hop across the street. And now I'm like the other night I went to sleep at 9:45.
Yeah.
This is unthinkable for me from like whatever number of years ago. I said it's like I'm on a different time zone almost. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
wild.
the free time thing is I think it's now one of the other things is some of the quote unquote free time is you have to find a way to like incorporate the kids.
Mhm.
So if you're like, if I'm watching like our new one, she's having a hard time falling asleep or whatever, I'm watching a little bit of basketball or something like that, I can just plop her in a carrier and just have it on my computer and watch while I'm walking her around. And that's the new free time, right?
Yeah.
You're maybe not at the bar with the friends watching the game, but you can be like rocking a baby to sleep or something while you watch the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about for you, Asha? What was the going back to work like for you?
It was, I think now, like in retrospect, I went back to work actually just August of this year. And so I've had like a few months, and only in the last couple of weeks, I was like, whoa, that was actually much harder than I expected. I think I like came in and was really gung ho to get back to work. And 4 months away is like a decent amount of time, especially for like a late stage startup that's like still working really quickly. So a lot of things change when you're out. And I had just had like this massive life change. And so I like came back and I realized like all I wanted to talk about was like the babies. That was like all because I had been in babyland for like 4 months. And so it was really hard to like shift into work mode and then also like catch up on everything. And I've been at my company for almost 10 years. So I know a lot of I know everybody at the company and I know a lot of what goes on. So I was like, oh, it'll be easy to just like jump in and get back to things. And I like really struggled in finding my like new identity as like a mom of two babies and also like as this director of product. And so the first 3 months was definitely a learning, and I struggled quite a bit in terms of like really balancing work. Like I couldn't work how I used to anymore, like in the evenings until super
Oh,
late,
definitely.
like having like meetings all the time. It's like, and even now I work from home like at least 3 days a week, and I can hear like our girl is like, she's really using her voice right now. Like this is her time to like test out. And I could just hear her like yelling at her giraffe, Sophie. And it's like really hard for me to concentrate when I'm like in a meeting when I can like hear them, and it's just instinct to want to like go check on them. But they're okay. They're with their nanny, but not alone.
Yeah, that's why did you feel guilty about wanting to like talk about like babies and family stuff at work? Was it hard to like find the appropriate space to do that?
I think so. Like, even though there are a lot of parents who are at my company, I think it just was like my whole world had shifted. And this was like my entire last few months. And I wanted to talk about it. And I don't know why I wanted to talk about it so badly, but like, I like felt now looking back, it was like, I wonder if I just needed that acknowledgement that like, yeah, wow, this was like a crazy experience for you. Like coming back is wild. I think HoneyBook has done a lot in terms of helping people transition back from parental leave, but it's every case is so subjective, and it's like one person coming back could feel so different from the other. And I think I just, because I thought I'd be okay, I didn't know what questions to ask. I didn't know what I should be expecting coming back. I think I was like, I really struggled trying to like find my footing. And it would have, I think now looking back, having like someone come in, and I've heard now that there are like these like coaches that can help like with
The
integrating people back to
reintegration.
leave. Yeah. And like that would be great because someone could be like, hey, these are the things that you could be feeling. I'm like, oh, I am feeling those. But in the moments, it's hard to really decipher.
I was talking with somebody who was on a recent episode where one of the things that she mentioned that I thought was really interesting was the difference. So her first kid wanted to take some, if I recall correctly, wanted to take a bunch of time. Second one, it was during COVID. And so just wanted to come back way earlier and just be back connected with people and talking and doing things. And um, it just made me realize that the amount you're going and planning for this, right? You're planning, children are going to come. We think we know roughly when they're going to come, right? You don't actually know. Like they can come early, they can come late. And then there's going to be some period where I'm going to be offline. And then I'm defining a period when I'm going to be back, and I'm going to be back, like fully back. There's not only so much variation in what life forces you to do potentially differently there's also the side of it where it's like you might not know what you want. It might be different from the last time.
Exactly.
The predictability of it all is like very low. And that must be a huge challenge, right? Never mind for, like, not only for you, but also for the team, because obviously, you've been there for 10 years. They want you to come back and be successful. They probably miss you lots. You probably, whoever they were backfilling with is probably not quite as integrated and understand stuff like you do and whatnot. But you're different too, right? So how do you do that? And say you were to go through this experience again, what would you recommend to people who are either going through that leave or even to like teams that are trying to support people coming back?
Yeah.
How would you do things differently?
That's a great question. Actually, like something I'm compiling to put together to like offer back to our people team at HoneyBook. But I think I love that idea of like a coach who can help like reintegrate you, because they can really tailor it to each specific case. But if it were to be like, for everyone, something that HoneyBook does that I think is great is they put together like a TLDR of everything that happened while you were out, specific to your roles. So you can get caught up pretty quickly on like, oh, these were the departures, these were the new hires, these are the things that you should know that are relevant to like how you operate within the company. But I think like, honestly, just like checking in like on a personal level often enough to be like, are you good? Like, because I think every company wants to be like, take your time, like, take as much time as you need, or a week or two or whatever, to really get back into things and talk to people. But at the same time, like you said, they're probably like, also, if you could start tomorrow on this thing that we've been missing from you, that'd be great. So I think just fine. I'm like happy to dive in, but if you could just ask how I'm doing, ask how the babies are, ask if I just like, I don't know, need anything, because then that helps me start thinking about the things that I might be needing, instead of trying to get back into this mode that I was so used to for all this time before kids. And now I'm like, wow, things are actually very different, and my brain actually is physically different. So how do I get back into things in a new way?
There's a like well-known investor who was talking about like startups and whatnot, and I think I could be wrong about exact phrasing, but the spirit of this is correct. Where he said that one of the reasons why a lot of like successful startups are founded by like young people is because it's not just that you have more time before you start a family, but also once you start a family, you're not as interested in doing 100-hour work weeks as you were before.
You can't.
So like, never mind the capacity of, I have more responsibilities now, but also your interests can kind of change too. And like, that obviously is going to affect all the ways in which you're interacting and what people can expect from you too. Right. So in some ways you're not even coming back exactly the same person almost.
No.
Well, Sam, when you actually were basically at a whole new team, right?
Exactly.
So they never got to see like pre baby Sam versus post baby Sam, right? They just got Sam. Was it like I'm just regularly working sort of thing like that? Because I feel like, Asha, you're saying that there's like a delta between like pre baby Asha, post baby Asha. They just know you as Sam, so it's like everything like, hey, it's just Sam. Everything's cool. We're good.
They hear me talking about the babies a lot, and sometimes that's cool, and sometimes it's they see me not as cool, especially at the beginning when they were when the babies are born. I was probably seeming stressed out quite a bit because again they knew that the babies were coming, and so they knew I was going to have some time away and have some time with dad brain in the office. And so it was interesting, but it has been like a real, even though there's some people who only know me as a dad, still has been this like identity shift that is still evolving. And but I've been going through that with other people too. I mean, with other dads in the office and other parents in the office and other parents in our community, and so it's all kind of an evolving thing, and we're doing it together.
That's great. It's good to have it's good to have that situation. Be nice if everyone had that.
Totally. We're lucky.
Did you like? Yeah. Asha? Did you have to have some conversations with people about the new expectations?
They're actually currently happening now as I've like had some time. It's been like 4 months since I've been back. And so it took a good 3 months to just like, I was just like kind of swimming, like, what am I doing? And actually I went to like a product leader summit in San Francisco and another conference like in Vegas, a fintech conference. And like those also helped me sort of get back into a groove or help me like redevelop my identity and be like, oh yeah, okay, I do like to do this in product, and this is how I want to like interact in the work world. And so I think also having like those meetups and talking to other people who work in the same space and who are also parents helps. But now, yeah, I'm having conversations about like, okay, this is how I'm able to operate. I might have my calendar blocked off from 7 a.m. to 8:15 every morning where it's like, that's baby time. And and all my colleagues are really supportive of that. But it took me to figure that out. No one could come and tell me like, this is how you're going to be when you come back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need that time to figure it all out and be like, okay, retrospect, now I get it.
So it's embarrassing to say I do the blocking off time for daycare drop off and school pickup and that stuff. I still book over it. I don't know how that's even possible.
I did that
honestly
too. I'm like, no, what? Yeah, it's all learning.
I feel like I'm like failing a like kindergarten entrance exam. It's like, no, that can you book now? Yes or no? You are currently that's when you're doing the no, apparently not.
Yeah. You'll get there.
Tell me what you think for both of you is the most important piece of advice for new parents who are going to be having twins for the first time that either you knew and you're glad you knew, or that you wish you knew going into this that you didn't know.
It's a good one. Sam, do you have?
Asha, do you have an answer off the bat for that?
I do, if you want some time. Yeah, I think it's something we knew, and now like looking back, it's like I don't think we could have survived without it. Is just like having that support, and I think again with one, it's like a whole shift, and with two, like friends would just be like, "Can we just come over and like hold a baby for you, or feed a baby for you, or
you're like, yes,
bring food, yeah,
yes, come right now."
Yeah, and I like read this in like our like parents in multiple groups like ahead of time. It was like ask for help and accept help, and like I don't know, it's hard to do a lot of times. You're like, no, I got this. Like I'm a functioning human, and at the same time, it's like no, there's no way we would have been able to be at this place with like two healthy children and two semi-healthy like mentally well adults to like be able to without all of the help that we got. So even just like someone coming over and being like, take a shower, I'm watching the babies, you're all good, meant a lot.
That's great. All right, Sam, your delayed answer. It's got to be ready now.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to just piggyback off of that, but
no.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of said, finding that finding those people to have shared experience with, like, is really important. But I'm trying to think of something else that just I mean, I think therapy is something that we also, um, Asha, if you don't mind me sharing, is something that's like is really important. It can be like for couples and individuals to be able to work on like those internal aspects that are coming, but you also don't know exactly what it's going to be like. Um, so I think that has helped us like tremendously, and also just like whatever you do to process emotions and process your identity um, and in order to process difficult things, like lean into that as well. If you have some time to like go on a walk, even if it's before birth or after, I think that's important, especially with two. That like, like again, like your sense of free time is completely different. So I think it's important to lean into those things that make you you, and also will help you uh, construct your new identity as well. And just kind of like really putting some effort in to work on all those things in whatever way is best for you.
It's funny. So previous to having kids, even into actually no, previous to like 2 weeks ago, I'd never heard of anybody going to therapy for being a parent or anything like that. Then I like made that post about, hey, I feel like there's some conversations we should have around like being working parents. I have heard this many times now,
Yeah.
like many times. I've never in my life heard this before. Like, not a thing as far as I know. If you're like, is there a therapy for parents? I'd be like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's therapy for, I guess, anybody. I don't know about parents specifically. And now I've heard about it many times. And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's, if it's a helpful tool, like we should be like talking about it a little bit more, probably.
Yeah.
So that's great to share. It's to your point, I've also heard the term identity an awful lot, and we talked about it here obviously a bunch today too. It really is this like very deep change to who you are. That is not as simple. Like, there's lots of dog parents and cat parents out there. Got a couple of cats before I had kids, and I love them and they're great and I'm responsible for them. But the level of responsibility here is like very different. And it's just a change of who you are. It's not just a change of what you have to do every day.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah, we also are cat parent to number one Jack. But yeah, and it just there's nothing to really prepare you. And I always thought like, no, like you could still be, mom and dad and still like live the same life that you're living. And Sam and I we live in an amazing city, and we take the babies out on the same walks that we would do all the way across the city to like a restaurant or a park or whatever. And we incorporate them, like you said, into like what we like to do, but it is very, very different. And like, yeah, you don't know until you become a parent. And then you're like, wow, this was what it was. Like, it's wild. Also, the New York Times came out with a podcast like recently called The Parents Aren't All Right. And like, I think everyone should listen to that because the Surgeon General in the US actually said that parenting is like a mental health crisis right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they talk about like what the underlying sort of cause of that is?
Yeah, they do. It's a few things. A lot of it is around just like how we parent now, like in this day and age. And like Sam brought up community quite a bit. And the reason why we thought about even leaving San Francisco, because San Francisco is so expensive and having two kids here.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were talking about like daycare and stuff. Like we looked at daycare for two kids and we're like, there's absolutely no way. Like we can't possibly like afford that and
Like
afford
$8,000 a month for two kids, something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
Unbelievable.
wild. And like, it's impossible. And we're grateful to have a nanny, but also it's like, we're not saving any money for sure. It's a lot. But at the same time, when we thought about leaving San Francisco, the biggest thing that we have here are our friends, because we've been here for a while, and our community. And that really makes a difference. And so what they were saying is because we parent just in our nuclear family a lot of the time, and we don't have like our extended family or our community or our village, the responsibility is on us a lot. And like,
Yeah, it's super true.
As working parents, it's like, we're just like balancing, and we want to be good parents. So we're just like, going down rabbit holes, trying to figure out like the best stroller and the best crib. And
I feel like we're I don't know if this is true for our parents' generation, but there's like almost this implicit expectation of being the perfectionist parent.
exactly.
You have to do actually everything 100%.
Exactly.
Maybe it's because we were the generation that got participation trophies and like everyone got A's and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's just, I think we're slowly coming to terms with the fact that there are just hard constraints and just tough trade-offs, and you have to navigate them. And trying to pretend that you can force yourself into giving 190% every single day across every aspect of your life is literally impossible.
Totally.
It will just burn you out.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's where a lot of us are. And that's why therapy comes up so much in your podcast. It's a lot. And now we just need to find that support and reframe what it means to be like parents.
Yeah, one thing I hope that that gets unpacked over these conversations are like, what are the things that deeply matter?
Yeah.
And what are the things that are superficial? And like, I can share one conversation that we've had where, it's like activities, right? So our daughter is old enough to be doing after school activities and whatnot. And is never like, obviously they cost money and whatnot, but we can put that all to the side. The difficulty of trying to get her somewhere and then bring her home on a consistent basis, predictably, when you have two other kids that are going to be sick, that have their own schedules, all this other nonsense. And by the way, you don't get to decide when gymnastics is. The gym decides when gymnastics is.
Yeah.
That's just like, maybe that's not a real thing. Maybe you're not going to get to do that. But, does she have a great relationship with her siblings? Definitely.
Yeah.
So, net, are we doing like, is that a net positive even if the gymnastics doesn't make it? Like, I think so. I think that's one of the important things. And I just don't think we've had like a conversation on stack ranking the things that in general we should probably value.
Yeah.
And like which things are okay to trade off from time to time.
And that's also going to be subjective and based on like each family. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Different situations, different interests, different parents, different priorities, different extended family situations.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a good point because I think we're trying to do it all and we're starting solids with our babies. And like, I'm like going down yet another and like, you got to do it right. We got to sit them in these high chairs and make sure we're making all this. And Sam's like, they'll be okay. They're going to figure it out.
Correct, Sam. That was good for you to say. I'll just say from us with our first one, it's like she should be having solids at this age. And she just was gagging constantly on. She just literally was not ready. Guess what? 2 months later, no problem. Right. But, the thing says that this number of months, you got to mean, it's like, we can also just relax. But again, it comes back to this idea that like almost the perfectionist parent that I think we got to dump that and have some more real, authentic conversations.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, by your third, I'm sure you're like going to be like, she'll do what she's going to do whenever she's going to do it.
Yeah. You go the level of perfectionism requirements drops precipitously with each additional child.
And that's something I'm trying to figure out how to get to that level with like your first. Like, is it possible? Is it possible for like, if someone told me XYZ or did XYZ, like, I don't know. I feel like I did a ton of research and yet still was not prepared at all to be a mom of twins until they came and I just went through it. But I wonder if there's any way to like, I don't know, get to that number three mentality fast.
The dads have an advantage here. So I think Sam, just being like, hey, chill, it's going to be fine.
It's a good
Kids
point.
loved, kids fed, kid has shelter, kid has clothes, like we're good. And I mean, that's how it's more like was my vibe even with the first kid. And so maybe this is where we provide that alternative voice to the one that you read about in all these unhelpful parenting books.
That's a really good point. You guys should write a book from a dad's perspective. See if moms will read it.
I mean, this is the first time. I don't think I have very many dads that are going to be coming on this thing, and I'm glad that we have Sam because I think that's there's a whole other set, obviously different challenges for moms, significant ones, probably more significant than dads, but we got our problems too. I remember, like I mentioned this another time, but I didn't really feel any close connection to the first kid when she came. Not till like she could look at me and like engage with me in her face was I like, oh, it's pretty cool. Like I like this kid. This is great. Right. And I don't, yeah, like I hold her. It's great. I like her. She's great. But that came later. I've never heard anybody say that. But then I tell people and they're like, yeah, no, I felt the same way. I'm like, we should talk about that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think that really the big change for me was when they started smiling for real.
Oh yeah, it's good stuff right there.
Yeah, that's like when I started to really feel the connection with them. Before they would smile, but they were only like gas smiles apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But now they smile and laugh, and I feel like there's an element of interaction. And now I really feel super connected to them in a way that I wasn't before.
Yeah, that's 100%. And you shouldn't feel guilty if you don't feel that connection right away.
Yeah.
That's like the number one word we're going to hear over and over again through all these conversations is guilt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks for joining me guys today. And we should definitely like have a semi-annual or annual catch up on like the state of the twins.
What's going on? Yeah.
Like how we're surviving. What kind of shenanigans are they up to? And we'll bring back Asha and Sam to walk us through the next stage of surviving a pair.
Love it. Cool. Thanks so much, Alex.
Yeah, thanks
awesome.
so much.
Well, I will talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Great.
Have a good one. Bye.